continuously aware of whatever is present. You need to be continuously stepping back, stepping out of the situation that the mind and body is in. Whether it's
Ras.
then a little bit of smoke, and then finally we'll be able to start the fire with that. But that activity requires continuous application. You can start and stop doing that, do it for 10 minutes, and then stop for 3 minutes, and do it for 5 minutes, and stop for 5 minutes, and do it for 1 minute, and stop for 10 minutes. Keep doing that. You can keep doing that for 10 years. And I've seen meditators doing that for 10 years without having a breakthrough. That doesn't work. Stopping and starting, stopping and starting. Being present in the sitting, and then when you leave the door, you wander and let your mind go here and there, and then come back into the hall and try to be present again and wandering around. It doesn't work. You need to keep your mind in the state of presence continuously whilst you're at home. You have 10 days to do this. Keep your head down, guarding your sense faculties. No need to look at anybody, no need to listen to anybody. Keep your awareness inside the body and just keep noting whatever is present. Whatever is arising, that's what we should be noting. Our practice is to see things clearly as they are without entanglement. We're just being mindful of what is there. We're not becoming involved in the situation. Whatever thoughts come up, to make a note of them. Most of the thoughts will be about you, continuously about me and mine in the present moment, constantly trying to establish itself. Anton's experimenting He wants to record some things. We don't want to become entangled. We gave you yesterday the simile of the person going to the theatre. The actors are all on the stage. The story is all there. The narrative is there. That's the story of your life. A bunch of actors, a bunch of thoughts and emotions dancing around on the stage. You can choose to get up on the stage and dance around with them and experience, become the experiencer of those thoughts and those emotions and those sensations. Or you can decide to jump off the stage, step back, sit down and just watch. Become very, very observant about what's going on. You don't have to become involved. You don't have to take your thoughts personally. You don't have to take your emotions personally. That's a choice you make in the present moment. If you don't have awareness and wisdom in the present moment, immediately you're in ignorance and craving. Immediately you will subjectify your experience. But if we start to develop this awareness and wisdom in the present moment, noting and knowing whatever is arising, then we'll be able to step back from things. So this is a non-reacting type of awareness. We're not reacting to whatever is being delivered. And these things are being delivered. Sensations, feelings, emotions and thoughts, they're arising and passing away continuously. We believe that they are mine. We believe that this is my life. We've been strongly identifying with those mental and physical states our whole life. We've been using those things to create and establish an identity for ourselves. We all like to think that our identity is a permanent thing. Most people like to think that they are a person, that they do exist. But in reality, it's just an idea that's being generated by the mind. You live in a matrix. The mind is generating a reality for you to live in by constantly appropriating and identifying with things, picking things up and taking them personally. It does it very efficiently, very skillfully. It weaves together a narrative that goes from the past through the present and into the future. It gives this thing a life. It has a passport, it has a name, and it strongly believes that it is somebody. Our practice is to break open this great myth, this belief that most people are holding on to and cherishing, this belief in self. But the Buddha tells us that the belief in self is the cause of suffering, and that if you want to release yourself from suffering, release yourself from samsara and the rounds of birth and death, then you're going to have to give up your sense of self. You're going to have to give up your identity. Are you willing to do that? That's the teaching that the Buddha is encouraging us to follow. To completely relinquish and give up our sense of personal identity. He wants us to see what is beyond this narrow focus of a me in the world. He wants us to see beyond that, to experience that state where there is no longer any suffering, because there is no longer a person there. There needs to be a person for suffering to occur. There needs to be somebody to accept it, take it. If there's no person, then there's no suffering. Because suffering is a concept which relates to people. Grief is a concept which relates to people. Jealousy, anger, these are all things which relate to a person. They belong to a person. If there's no person, then those things no longer create suffering. We need to become observant at the sense doors. Whenever you see something, I want you to make a note. Seeing, seeing. Whenever you hear something, you make a note. Hearing, hearing. Whenever you smell something, make a note. Smelling, smelling. I want you to step back from the experience, not become involved in the details of the experience. We're not trying to identify what that taste is, or what that smell is, or what that sound is. We're not trying to identify who's making that, who's cutting the grass over there. What kind of machine are they using? We're not investigating that stuff. All we want to know, we don't even care if it's the sound of a grass cutting machine. All we want to know is that at the moment, this unit, this thing that is sitting on the floor, it's hearing stuff. That's its nature. You're a sense sphere being. That means you're a being with 6 sense spaces. You have eyes, ears, nose, a tongue, and the whole body. These are the 5 physical sense doors. You'll be in continuous contact with objects that relate to these sense doors. For the rest of your life, you'll constantly be contacting visible objects, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touch. You'll need to learn to live with these experiences. You'll need to learn to manage your experience around the sense doors and the consciousness that arises at those sense doors. If you're unable to manage that, then you will have many difficulties in your life. When somebody says something unpleasant to you, you can become upset. When you smell something terrible, you can become upset. When you see something that's uncomfortable, you become upset. Our meditation practice is to let go of upsetness. Let go of taking things personally and just acknowledging, oh, there's some smelling occurring now. Well, there's some seeing occurring now. The unit is seeing things. The thing smells. It tastes things. When you put that food into your face, into the hole in the front of your face, you put it in there. It starts tasting. And of course, physical sensations on the body as well. You're always being contacted by different physical sensations. It's either too hot or too cold, it's too humid or too dry, you're itchy, you're painful, your muscles are aching, your skin is dry, whatever it is. Constantly coming in contact with things. So this type of meditation is to understand and see that clearly, to be able to step back and step away from participating in the experience. As meditators, we're just observers. We're not trying to become involved, and we're not trying to get anything from our practice. Everything we need to do is all about understanding. The Buddha tells us to understand the First Noble Truth. The First Noble Truth is there is dukkha. We'll talk more about that as the retreat goes on. Step back. Keep stepping back from your experience. When you have a painful knee, note it. Send your awareness to the knee and just note whatever the sensation is. If it's tingling, make a note of it. If it's vibrating, make a note of it. If it's become hard and it's aching,
make a note that it's aching. Don't take it personally. Don't think, oh, my knee. As soon as you call it my knee, the suffering is yours. You've picked it up. You've taken it as mine. You've identified with that physical sensation in the body. But that physical sensation is not you. It wasn't, you weren't there a minute ago, and now you've arisen, and soon you are going to pass away. That's not how it works. You don't arise and pass away. The physical sensation arises and passes away. It's always arising and passing away. Moment after moment, there are different sensations, different emotions, different feelings coming here and there. Our job is to experience them, note them, and then recognize them as conditioned objects. Not take them as me, mine, and I. And in that way, we can start to let go of things. The sixth door is the mind door. And the mind door experiences all kinds of objects as well. It experiences feeling, it experiences emotional states, it experiences moods, it experiences the defilements of greed and anger, it experiences thoughts. All these objects need to be noted and known. In the beginning stages, because you've been used to identifying with this stuff your whole life, it will feel a little bit strange to think that that's not me. But I encourage you to keep watching. I encourage you to keep looking. See the nature of the mind and body process. See how it is arising and see how it is passing away. It's completely impersonal. It's out of control. It's dependently arisen. That means it's arisen dependent upon conditions. When the conditions are there, that object arises. When that condition passes away, that object also passes away. So we're living in a conditioned reality. When there's awareness and wisdom in the present moment, we're noting and knowing and letting go, you'll start to experience some freedom from the mind and body process. You'll start to experience what it's like to step out and stop taking things personally. In fact, you'll experience that state which doesn't have a sense of me in it. You'll be able to just see phenomena arising and passing away. We must learn to continuously note what is there. It's not enough just to note random things. In this practice, we have a main object, rising and falling, and in the walking meditation, it's lifting, moving, placing. We're trying to keep our awareness on these main objects as much as possible. If anything else arises, if there's any other acts of consciousness, if there's any other experiences that come to, let's say, interfere with your practice, then they're known as secondary objects. Hearing, smelling, seeing, touching, these are secondary experiences in our meditation practice. We want to be focusing on the main object as much as we can, but if the secondary objects arise, we note them and we come back. Rising, falling, sitting. Rising, falling, sitting. In the beginning of the practice, we introduced to you the sitting posture. Here and now. The here is this thing, here in the present moment, right now. Our practice is to be in the here and now continuously. Activate your awareness in the present moment and then note the whole body as it's sitting there. Become aware of the whole body. Fill the body with your awareness, so you know that it's just sitting there. For some people, it will feel like your awareness is in the center of the chest and you're aware of the different limbs. For other people, it will feel like your awareness is up here somewhere, looking down from the back. You'll be able to see the body just sitting there. Our job is to fill the body with this awareness. We want to be inside internalizing. When you can do this, when you're sitting there, you're just noting sitting, it's the sitting posture. Sitting, now, sitting, now, sitting. And then what you can do is you turn your attention to the rising and falling. Don't try and control the rising and falling movement. We're trying to let the rising and falling movement become as natural as possible. We don't want to be controlling it in any way. The rise and fall, breathing does have an intentional structure, so there will be some effort in breathing. You'll notice that there's some effort, but don't worry too much about that. As long as you're not actively trying to manipulate your breath, you should be right. Just allow it to settle down and keep sending your awareness to that location. If we're unable to note what is going on at these 6 sense doors, the sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touches and the thoughts, then what happens is we take them personally and then we start to judge them. We judge them as good or bad. Based on that judgment, we'll decide if we like it or dislike it. And then based upon liking and disliking, you'll experience craving and aversion. Things that are judged as bad and unpleasant and no good, we try to push them away. The mind experiences resistance. I want you to note if your mind experiences resistance. Some of you may be experiencing resistance right now. Embrace it. Become comfortable with it. Know what this feeling is like to not want to be here or be tired or wishing to be somewhere else. What does it feel like to have that in the mind? Don't take it personally. As soon as you really start to identify with that resistance, you'll be in a world of pain. You'll be struggling on the retreat. You're taking things personally and it's hard work. So what you need to do is detach from that. Notice when there's some resistance in the mind. Notice when it's there and note it and step back from it. Resistance means not wanting to be associated with something. Maybe it's the walking meditation. You have a resistance to that. I don't want to do it. It's boring. It's useless. Maybe it's the sitting meditation. Why do we have to do this so much? Why do we have to be in silence? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? I want to go to the 7-Eleven. Is it okay? No, it's not. Next week, you can enjoy yourself at the 7-Eleven. So what we're trying to do is prevent the arising of these resistance states. By seeing things clearly, we're blocking and stopping the arising of aversion towards things that we don't like, and we're blocking and stopping craving towards things that we do find pleasant. Most of our lives we spend bouncing between these two things. We're basically automatic reaction machines. Pleasant feeling arises, oh, I like that, I want that, keep it, it's mine. unpleasant feeling arises, I don't like that, I don't want it, push it away, get rid of it. Aversion arises in the mind. Mostly we have craving and aversion just flowing in and out of the past and the future. Watch it. Have a look for yourself. See what's going on in your mind. Some things you'll find that you like and some things you find that you won't like. We're reacting to things. This type of meditation is non-reaction awareness. We want to put our mind into a situation where it notes and knows, where it sees things clearly but doesn't react to them. And the three main reactions are pushing things away, trying to hold on to things, or identifying with things, taking them as me, mine and I. Greed, hatred and delusion arising in the mind. Our meditation practice, the Buddha's teaching, is all about removing greed, hatred and delusion from the mind. And this is how we do it. By constantly, persistently, continuously attending to the present moment. Attending to the sense bases where the sense perception process occurs. Objects will come and go. Get used to it. There will be many unpleasant things that you hear, smell, taste and touch throughout your life. How are you going to manage that? There are many, many things. Testing. There are many, many things which can become objects of craving as well. Watch out for that. Become observant of that. Whenever you find that there's something nice, look out for that. When you taste some nice food, watch for the reaction in your mind. Watch for the liking, watch for the wanting. Make a note of it. Don't blame yourself for liking and wanting. These are natural states that arise and pass away. They arise and they pass away. They're not you. So don't pick them up and don't hold on to them. Don't take them as being you. Our job is to simply observe, to simply let go of this craving that wants to get into everything and become involved with everything. Mindfulness is the non-reacting awareness, non-judging awareness. Make sure you note your judgments. When you start judging people on the retreat, and you look at that guy, look at his walking meditation. Look at her, she's not sitting up straight. Look at him eating so much. Look at her, well, she's gone to sleep. Look at the way that your mind makes judgments about things. And make a note of that. Judging. I want you to become aware of each different act of consciousness which occurs during the day without becoming involved with it. So the principle of our Satipatthana meditation is to be mindful of whatever is the presently arising object. Just that. It sounds like a fairly simple task just to observe, but it's quite tricky, as you're going to find out. The mind wants to get involved with its life. It wants to get involved with those objects. It likes to have its opinions. It likes to have its views. Of course, all its opinions are correct. All its views are correct. Everyone else's is wrong, of course. This is the way the me is. It always thinks it's right and everything else is wrong. We need to persevere and have patience. We need to have strenuous efforts. Our practice of meditation in the daily activities, we'll come back to that. The main object of this practice is observing the whole body. Becoming aware of the body when it's in the sitting posture, becoming aware of the body in its standing posture, becoming aware of the body when it's walking here and there, becoming aware of the body when it's lying down. Being able to maintain your awareness on these 4 bodily postures will help you make your presence continuous. You don't need to be searching or hunting for any special information. You just need to establish your awareness internally on the whole body, all at once. And just know that at the moment this body is sitting, at the moment this body is walking, at the moment this body is lying down. Just that. Just bare awareness. We should also pay attention to why we change the body posture. We're always changing the body's posture. We're always moving it here and there, adjusting the arms, adjusting the legs, scratching it. Why do we do that? Why are we constantly transitioning from posture to posture? Have you noticed that that's all you do all day? Moving from the sitting posture to the standing posture, and then to the walking posture, and then lying down, and then a bit more standing, a bit more walking, a bit more sitting, a bit more lying. Why do we constantly transition between these 4 postures? I want you to examine that as well. Why do you change the body all the time? What's that about? The reason we do it is to try and cure suffering. Suffering is inherent, it's continuously there in the present moment, but we've managed to devise some ways of curing suffering. We think that by moving the body around, we won't have to experience the nature of this body. But just try to sit here for 1 or 2 hours. You'll start to experience pain arising in the body. What about just standing? What's the maximum amount of time you can stand before you collapse? A couple of hours? Even 1 hour is quite painful. Standing still for 1 hour. What about walking? How many kilometers can you walk before you need to stop and stand, or stop and sit down? What about lying down? Why do you, even when you're sleeping, you change postures? Because the body becomes uncomfortable. The body is a vehicle for the manifestation of suffering. The body is a vehicle for the manifestation of suffering. This is where you experience your old karma, your old volitional intentions. This body is the fruit. It's the resultant of those old intentional structures. This is what's manifesting out of your mind, this thing. And we have to take care of it, don't we? We have to continuously be aware of its suffering. We can't stand even a moment of suffering. We try to find some distraction, or we try to find some way out. How long can you sit without being bored? These days we immediately pick up our phones. A couple of minutes, pick up your phone. Little bit of stress, pick up your phone. How many other things do we use to try and alleviate suffering from our experience? While you're here, I want you to try and experience for yourself the nature of the mind and body. Why do we do what we do? I want you to investigate this. We've started to investigate this in our food reflection. Why do we eat food? Why do you do what you do? This is called yoniso manasikara, wise attention. Or attending wisely to the present moment and understanding our motivations. What is motivating us to always change the posture of the body? Suffering. If we keep it still in one posture for an hour or two, an enormous amount of suffering starts to arise. The body is full of painful sensations in a very short time. How do we cure that? We change postures. We have to constantly keep this thing moving. In fact, if we examine our day, and you have all the time in the world to do that here, I want you to just watch and monitor how many times you change your posture throughout the day. I want you to notice each time when you transition from a standing to a sitting, and make a note of that. I want you to notice when you're transitioning from lying down to sitting up, and then from sitting up to standing up, and then from standing up to walking. Make sure that you see each of these individual transitions and understand why you are doing them. Understand what the motivation is behind it. Why do we eat stuff? Well, for many people, eating now has become some kind of enjoyment, some kind of entertainment. But really, why do we eat? We eat to cure suffering. What happens to the body if we stop eating? It starts to become hungry, doesn't it? Unpleasant physical sensations start to arise. You do it for too many days, you'll start to experience some suffering, both physical and mental. We need to feed the body every day to make sure it doesn't go into an acute state of suffering. We have to make sure that we're maintaining it. What about drinking? Why do we drink water? Same thing, to cure suffering. Why do we go to the bathroom? To urinate and defecate, of course. We don't hang out in there because it's a nice place. We go there to cure suffering. The bladder or the bowel is about to burst. All of our activities are to cure suffering. We're in a state of suffering, but we don't realize it. We don't understand it. All we do is spend our time finding little distractions that can take us out momentarily from the suffering. They're called sensual pleasures. We seek pleasant things to look at or smell or taste or touch. That's the only way, that's our only strategy up until now. Our only tactic, our only strategy for curing suffering is turning to sensual pleasure, kamaguna. We seek out sensuality. A nice movie to watch, party to dance at, alcohol to drink, ganja to smoke. All these things, we're seeking some way to cure the suffering that is going on. For most people, it's money. Completely obsessed by money. They think that's going to be their way out of suffering. Get as much of the stuff as possible, and then I'll be fine. The money doesn't cure suffering. In fact, money can cause a lot of suffering, can cause a lot of arguments and a lot of disputes. Of course, having no money is a disaster as well. You're going to have something. You're going to have to be able to rent a place where you can put this body. You have to put it somewhere every night, right? Why do we do that? Why do we take it inside and lock it away? Lie it down and put it to sleep? Yeah, suffering. We have to put it to sleep. What happens if we don't let it sleep for 3 days? We'll start to go a little bit crazy. Thinks the brain's not functioning properly anymore when it's deprived of a lot of sleep. You'll have visual and audio distortions. So the body needs to be put to bed. The body needs to be fed. It needs to be given clothing. Why do we use clothing? Do we reflect on that? Do we use clothing to make it look pretty and special? Or are you using clothing to remove suffering? What would happen if you walked around naked? Well, mosquitoes and ants and all kinds of things would bite you. The sun would burn you. The rain would wet you. So we use clothing. We use food. We have to have a place to sleep. I want you to start to observe the nature of your existence while you're here on the retreat. Start to examine what's really going on with this thing. And do it in an objective way. Not subjectively. Be objective. Step back and observe this thing. I know it's difficult to step out of yourself, but that's what the practice is. Stepping back and not identifying with what is going on in the present moment. Unwise attention. That means not knowing why you are doing something in the present moment is the cause of wrong view. It's the cause of suffering. Wise attention, being able to know why you are doing what you are doing, is the cause and condition for the arising of right view. Right view is the most important part of the Buddha's teaching. That's where the wisdom is. So we need to develop wise attention. When we have wise attention, awareness and wisdom can overcome ignorance. When we have we have a battle. When we have unwise attention, 5 hindrances, we'll talk about them in a couple of days. The 5 hindrances arise and cause trouble in the mind. When we have wise attention, we start to develop the 7 enlightenment factors, and we'll talk about them as well. Wise attention leads to the development of enlightenment factors and freedom and release, the overcoming of ignorance and the removal of self. If we don't have wise attention and awareness in the present moment, what's arising? Ignorance. The 5 hindrances are swirling. 5 hindrances are sensual desire, ill will, laziness, restlessness, and doubt. We'll talk about them later. If you're not understanding and not seeing what is going on, then the 5 hindrances are swirling. The 5 hindrances are the cause and condition for the maintenance of ignorance in the present moment. When there's ignorance in the present moment, craving enters into the sense perception process. When craving enters the sense perception process, things that are cognized through the sense doors are taken as me, mine, and I. So it's very important that we develop wise attention. It can stop this whole domino effect which leads to suffering. We have to yoniso our transitions. For example, when we're sitting and our legs become sore, and they do become sore, it's best if you try and sit completely still, 45 minutes without moving. But for some of you that will be difficult for the first few days. You will need to change your legs at some point. I want you to try changing your legs, changing your posture, by using wise attention in the present moment. By really attending to the fact of what you are doing. I don't want you to react to the painful sensation. Painful sensations are arising in the legs now. if you're not attending to that wisely, if you don't know that suffering is present, if you just see it as my painful legs. See, there's two different types of understanding. Either you see it as my painful legs, or you see it as there is suffering. If you see it as my painful legs, then what's going to happen is aversion arises in the mind. You want to push that away. Dosa. Aversion is arising. You want to get rid of it. And craving is also arising. You want to get into a position where it's comfortable and nice. So you have this dual reaction going on, wanting to escape from the unpleasant and reach the pleasant. This is the development of defilements, the development of kilesa in the mind, the development of greed and aversion. We want to avoid this. Our meditation practice is all about avoiding the development of greed and aversion, of liking and disliking. We want to be able to be cool with whatever is happening. To be cool means to be equanimous. Equanimity is a state of mind where we don't react to what is going on. We want to be cool with things. We want to be able to manage ourselves in a crisis. People who are cool and who can manage themselves get paid a lot of money. They're the managers of the world. People who are in positions of management, executives. These are people who are able to think without reacting in a crisis situation. They've developed those skills to be able to manage what is going on. Companies pay those people a lot of money. If you can develop those skills in your life, you may have a possibility of reaching one of those positions. If you can't even control if the mosquito is biting you, if you become angry at a mosquito or angry, what are you going to do in a crisis in a big company? How are you going to manage a real crisis? If you react to something small and tiny like that, with aversion or upset, disappointed, we need to learn how to manage our reaction process. And this is done through noting and knowing, through seeing and understanding things as they really are. This is the way to develop deep and sustained samadhi. But it's also a way that can make your life, when you leave this place, better. The whole point of the meditation retreat is to give you some skills, give you some tools to be able to work with your own mind and your own body, to be able to manage your situation better. Everybody suffers from emotional breakdowns. We all get into a crisis every now and then. Stuff happens. We do freak out. But how long does that freak out last? Can you manage it? Can you step back? Can you step out of that emotional state? And for example, jealousy or grief. These are very, very strong emotional states, bound up with lots of thoughts and anger and stress and sadness, depression. These types of states really grab us. Or should we say, we grab them. They create a sense of I, which is quite horrible to actually live with. When you're experiencing these states and you're identifying with them, there's an enormous amount of suffering. But the truth is, these states do arise. So we need to be able to work with them. We need to be able to manage them. On the retreat, we'll start with the small things. Start with little tinglings and things in your body, little itches. If you find something is becoming itchy, before you reach and itch it, I want you to just note, oh, there's some itching sensation occurring. Put your mind there and note what it is. I want you to try and change your posture with wise attention. That means you're attending to why you are changing your posture. Why are you changing your posture? You're changing your posture to cure suffering. If you see it in this way, aversion will not arise, disliking will not arise, and craving and liking will also not arise. You'll be able to transition in your posture. You're just touching, reaching, bending, 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 touching, placing, sitting, sitting. No aversion for the old posture, no pleasure for the new posture, just wisdom in the present moment, understanding the body needs to be cured of suffering. If you see this 100 times a day, if you see why you do what you do, then you'll understand. Why do you wash your face in the morning? Why do you get up and brush your teeth? To cure suffering, right? Your face feels sticky, or your mouth feels uncomfortable from the night's plaque growth, or whatever it is. Why do we need to take a shower? Why do we wash the body with soap? Because it's dreadful if we don't. What happens to the body if you don't take a shower for a month? Suffering. Even for 2 days for some people can be a lot of suffering. So the body is not what you think it is. It's the manifestation of old karma. It's your karmic resultant. It's your legacy. It has 6 doors. Those doors are always open. Those doors are always contacting the outside world and the inner world as well. The mind door is contacting the inner world. Suffering is continuously arising if we don't understand and see what this process is. If we don't see it, if we don't understand it, we'll just be automatic reactionaries, trying to get away from the unpleasant things and get to the pleasant. Any kind of unpleasantness, whether it's a sound or a sight, move it, clear it, get rid of it. Unpleasant people, unpleasant smells, unpleasant touch. We're trying to get out of that, and we're trying to move towards the pleasant. And this is what we do all the time. I want you to be able to start noting and labeling during the eating process. We've started to do that already. We're reflecting wisely. You know why you are eating. It's not for enjoyment or entertainment or getting fat. You're not doing it for those pleasurable reasons. You're trying to stop feelings of hunger and not create any feelings of being too full. You'll experience fullness on the retreat here. If you eat too much, your body is going to become full. This time in the afternoon, you'll be like this. 2 big bowls of rice and curry. I'm not going to have dinner, so I should probably eat lots. You'll create a lot of suffering for yourself if you do that. 2 meals is more than plenty. 2 good meals, enough to sustain you on the retreat. Don't eat any more than that. Otherwise you'll start to become full, become tired, become heavy. The mind becomes hazy. So be careful with how much you eat. I know the food is delicious and you can help yourself. You can eat as much as you like. We won't restrict you. But for your meditation practice, you should be aware that you should eat just enough to satisfy the hunger pains. I want you to, food is a very sensual thing. Food and sex, these 2 activities involve all sense doors. We see and we smell and we taste and we touch. It's a very sensual experience, eating. Sex is also a very sensual experience because all sense doors are involved. Food, all the sense doors are also involved. You may like the smell of the food. You may like the taste of the food. You may just like looking at it. Apparently, Instagram thinks that people like looking at food. There's a great deal of pleasure to be found in looking at it. You don't even need to eat it and pleasure arises. Someone's nice little fern on their coffee or something like that. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Liking, wanting. Oh, I want a coffee now. Yeah. What about the smell of the food? I want you to, when the food comes, I want you to, you don't have to put your face in your food. It looks weird. But I want you to just smell it before you start eating. Or even during your eating, make a note that smelling is occurring. Make a note, smelling, smelling. When you're tasting the food, tasting, tasting, eat slowly. When you're reaching at least half the bowl, you should eat very slowly. If you haven't done this practice before, your bowl of food is sitting there on the table. Make a note, seeing, seeing, smelling, smelling, wanting, wanting, liking, liking, reaching, dipping, lifting, lifting, opening, placing, tasting, tasting. What temperature is it? Is it hot or cold? Make a note of that. Coolness, coolness, heat, heat, liking, liking, crunching, crunching, hearing, hearing. We can hear the food being crunched. Make a note of that as well. When it's full in your mouth, you have a full mouth of food, what's that sensation? Make a note of that. And then when you wish to swallow it, you make a note. Swallowing, swallowing. Try to follow the sensation down your throat. How far can you go? How far can you sense that sensation of food until it disappears off the radar? And then come back with wise attention again. The suffering is not still completely cured yet. I need another spoon. And so you take another spoon, dip it in, lift it, raise it, tasting, touching, smelling, seeing, all those things. Try to contemplate all those different things. There is an enormous amount to learn and understand just in eating a bowl of food. Deep and profound insights into the nature of reality can arise in an activity that you've all done your entire lives. We just don't pay attention. We haven't been paying attention. We're distracted. Distracted by the person we're having the meal with. We're in conversation. Or we're looking at our phone. Or we're watching the TV. Or we're sitting on the bus looking out the window. Or we're walking along drinking our drink. We never actually pay attention to the act of eating. We've forgotten what it's all about. Now we use eating as a kind of entertainment. You want to meet with your friends? Shall we go and have some coffee and cake? Eating has become our entertainment system. Look out for that. Observe the craving that arises there. It's going to cause suffering. Of course, you think it's pleasurable. You like it. It is enjoyable. There's some pleasure catching up with an old friend, having a coffee. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The Buddha's not telling you to stop eating with your friends. All the Buddha tells us to do is become mindful of what we're doing. Really watch your intentions. If you have any cravings for particular things, If you're a pizza person, or you're an ice cream person, and these things start to arise, look at it in your mind. Observe that. What's going on there? If you want to drink coffee, look at that. If you want to drink beer, look at that. Observe it in the mind. What's going on there? If now's the time you really need to have a cigarette, look at that. What kind of suffering is that cigarette now creating? How much suffering do those things create? Not only poisoning our bodies and minds, but creating craving in the mind, continuously needing to be satisfied. We're like a slave running around catering to what craving wants. You can stop this process by just, now I'm going to watch what's going on in the mind. We'll continue to talk about these themes throughout the retreat. For the moment, I want you to just start becoming aware of the contents of your physical sensations that are occurring in the body. And I want you to become aware of some of the mental states that arise in the mind. That's during your daily activities. During the sitting meditation, you should be firmly focused on your rising and falling. First, we start with present moment awareness. We internalize it. We come inside. We're present. We're internal. We hold this present nowness. We hold this internalness. Hold it for a few minutes. Just hold it there. If your mind goes into thinking something, come back. You'll feel what it's like when you're inside the body. There'll be an awareness of the whole thing. Just acknowledge that whole thing sitting there. Hold it. When you can hold it like this in the present moment, it will become still. When the body becomes still and calm, the breath becomes still and calm. When the breath becomes still and calm, it feels pleasant. When the mind experiences pleasantness, it gets happy. When the mind becomes happy, it becomes concentrated. And when it becomes concentrated, it sees things as they really are. So try to become content with whatever is the presently arising object. Don't try to catch or force anything here. Don't meditate to try and see something. This is the biggest problem that new meditators have. They're watching because they want to see something. And this wanting is blocking you from the present moment. So just observe without wanting anything. We don't want any results from our meditation practice. Don't worry about the results. They're conditioned phenomena. What you need to do is put the conditions in place. Put all these conditions in place. That's going to occur naturally, automatically, intuitively, in the way that it should. So the Buddha doesn't teach us results. He teaches us the conditions. He teaches us the work that needs to be done. This stuff happens automatically. If this is in place, this arises. When this is, that comes to be, with the arising of this that arises. We live in a conditioned reality. Everything in our life is being completely conditioned. There's nothing by chance. There's no randomness. It's all conditioned, the whole thing. There's only one unconditioned element in the universe. That unconditioned element is Nibbana. So for the meantime, before you experience that state, you'll need to work with the conditioned world. The conditioned world of physical sensations and feelings, emotions and thoughts. You need to note them and know them and allow them to be let go. I'll ask to stop now. Please continue with your walking and sitting meditation. and then there'll be a hot cup of tea for you at 5 o'clock.